I still set 2 coffee cups on the table every morning. I pour the coffee. Steam rises from both. Then I sit. I drink from mine. The other cup sits cold. A habit. A ghost. 3 years after he left, I can't stop. Some mornings I catch myself listening for his steps in the hallway, not because I miss him. That's the part that makes me feel sick saying it out loud. I don't miss him. I miss how certain I felt before I let him in. Before Robert, my life had a rhythm I didn't have to explain to anybody. I woke when I woke. I ate when I was hungry. If the sink had dishes, they waited. If the laundry piled up, it piled up. Nothing punished me for being human. I knew my house, the one loose tile by the back door, the cabinet that stuck unless you lifted it a little, the chair by the window that caught the afternoon sun. I had my shows. I had my books. I had my long, quiet mornings. People hear that and they think it sounds sad, but it wasn't sad. It was simple. It was mine. On Thursdays, I met Eleanor and Margaret at the diner on Main Street. Same booth, same waitress, same jokes. Eleanor always complained about the iced tea being too weak. Margaret always wanted more lemons. We talked about our kids. We talked about our bodies falling apart in slow, annoying ways. We laughed about it because what else do you do? Sometimes we didn't talk about anything important, just what we cooked, who got a new haircut, who saw a neighbor walking their dog in pajamas. Those were good days, plain days. I didn't know I was storing them up. Robert showed up on a Tuesday night at the community center. Bingo. He sat in the empty chair next to mine and acted like he belonged there. He had a warm voice. He smiled when I won a silly little prize. He remembered my name the next time he saw me. That mattered more than it should have. I was 63, widowed, 10 years. I'd gotten used to people looking through me instead of at me. At a certain age, you can stand in a room and feel invisible. So when someone looks at you like you're still a woman, it does something to you. It wakes something up. Not romance, exactly. More like relief. He asked me for coffee. I said yes, like it was nothing, like I was choosing a muffin. I didn't think it would change anything. At first, it felt light. Phone calls in the evening, a dinner out once in a while. He held doors open. He asked about my day. He said I had a calm way about me. He said it like it was rare. My daughter came by one weekend and saw the flowers on the counter. She smiled in that careful way adult children smile at their parents like they're checking for cracks. She said, "It's nice to see you with someone." I nodded. I wanted it to be true. I wanted it to mean I was safe from being alone. He started coming over more. At first, it was just for coffee, then for dinner. Then he'd stay to watch television. Then he'd fall asleep in my chair and I wouldn't wake him because it felt rude. So I'd tiptoe around my own living room. He left his glasses on my table one night. I picked them up, cleaned them, set them carefully next to his plate the next day. It felt intimate, like a small kindness that meant something. Then came his jacket over the back of my kitchen chair. Then his shoes near the door. Then his toothbrush in my bathroom cup. It wasn't one big moment where I said yes to a new life. It was 100 little moments where I didn't say no. He had opinions about everything, not mean ones at first, just constant ones. He didn't like the way I folded towels. He didn't like the way I loaded the dishwasher. He didn't like the radio on in the morning because it made his head hurt. He didn't like my friends because they were a lot. He didn't like me going out at night because it was dangerous. Each time he said it like he was protecting me. And each time I bent a little. I moved my things to make room for his. I put my reading lamp somewhere else because his chair needed that corner. I started buying the bread he liked because he complained about mine being too dry. I stopped making fish because he said the smell lingered I stopped humming while I cooked because he asked what I was doing. Small things. So small you'd laugh if someone tried to explain them to you. But the days are made of small things. After a while, I noticed I was waiting for his reactions before I did anything. Before I chose a movie. Before I called a friend. Before I bought something at the store. I'd hear his voice in my head, even when he wasn't there. He started calling me his girlfriend. I didn't correct him. I told myself it didn't matter, but it did something to me. It made me feel younger in a way that wasn't flattering. It made everything feel temporary, like I was supposed to be grateful for whatever attention I got and not ask for anything solid. One time, I said the word partner, not dramatic, just in a sentence. Something like, "My partner will be here later." He looked at me like I'd insulted him. "Don't call me that," he said. "It makes me sound old." I didn't know what to say. We were old. That was the truth. But I swallowed it because I didn't want to ruin the evening. That became my specialty, not ruining the evening. If he was quiet, I tried to figure out what I'd done. If he was sharp, I softened. If he complained about his ex-wife, I listened until my ears felt hot. If he complained about his kids, I listened until my shoulders tightened. He had a way of talking that made every story end with him as the injured one. Everyone misunderstood him. Everyone used him. Everyone disappointed him. At first, I felt sorry for him. Then I felt responsible for him. And then, without noticing, I became tired of him. But I didn't leave, because leaving meant being alone again. And I told myself I was too old to start over twice. He began staying more nights. Then, most nights. Then, it was strange when he wasn't there. He didn't exactly move in. Not with boxes and an announcement. It was more like his presence spread until it filled the rooms. He'd bring little bags from his car, and I stopped asking when he was taking them back. His mail started coming to my address. He said it was just easier. I remember holding one of his envelopes and feeling something cold in my stomach. Not fear, something like a quiet understanding that a line had been crossed. And I still didn't say anything. When my friends called, I stopped answering sometimes. Not because I didn't love them, because I didn't want to explain why I couldn't meet, or why I had to check with someone, or why I was suddenly busy every evening. Eleanor left a voicemail one day. Her voice sounded annoyed and hurt at the same time. "Are you alive over there?" she said, trying to joke. I listened to it twice. Then I didn't call back until the next day. When I did call, I kept my voice bright. I said I'd been tired. I said I'd had a lot going on. I did not say, I don't know how to be myself when he's around. I started missing small things. Bridge nights. Bingo. My doctor appointment because he wanted me to go with him to my grandson's school performance because Robert didn't feel up to sitting that long. I told myself there would be other performances, other lunches, other chances. There's always a way to make time feel endless when you don't want to face what you're doing. My body changed in those years too. Not in a dramatic way, just the normal ways. A little less energy, a little more stiffness, more naps, more ache. Robert used that like a reason. "See," he'd say, "you shouldn't be driving at night." "See," he'd say, "you need to rest more." "See," he'd say, "let me handle that." And part of me liked it. I'm ashamed to say that. It felt good to be taken care of in small ways, but it came with a cost because the care was never free. It always came with his rules attached. He also had his own health issues. Everyone does at that age. Bad knees, high blood pressure, a little trouble sleeping, and he made it all my job without ever saying it was my job. He called me late at night from the other room. "Helen," he'd say, "I can't sleep." So I'd get up, I'd make tea. I'd sit there while he talked about regrets, about people who wronged him, about how nobody appreciated him. I'd sit and nod while my eyes burned with tiredness. Then I'd go back to bed and stare at the ceiling. And the next morning, I'd wake up feeling like I'd run a marathon. He began borrowing money in ways that didn't sound like borrowing. "I'll pay you back," he'd say, like it was obvious. It was always for something that had a sad story attached. A late bill, a grandson who needed help, a mistake he made years ago that was catching up. I wrote checks and told myself it was temporary. I told myself I could afford it. I told myself it wasn't the point. But I noticed how easily he reached for my wallet and how strangely he avoided talking about anything serious. If I asked where things were going, he'd smile like I was being dramatic. "Why do you have to make everything so heavy?" he'd say. "We're happy." And I'd sit there with that word in my mouth. Happy. Like a lie I was supposed to repeat until it felt true. The moment I understood wasn't big. That's what scares me. It was small enough to miss. It was a Tuesday afternoon. Rain tapping on the kitchen window. He was standing there with the mail, holding a bill, sighing like he was carrying the whole world on his back. He looked at me and said, "You never listen, Helen." And something in me went still, because I knew it wasn't true. I had listened so much that I barely heard myself anymore. I had listened until my friendships went quiet. I had listened until my routines disappeared. I had listened until the house stopped feeling like mine. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just looked at him and saw very plainly that he would always say that to me or to the next woman. It didn't matter how much I gave. There would always be another complaint, another sigh, another accusation that I wasn't enough. That night, I made dinner, and he ate like nothing happened. He watched television. He fell asleep in his chair, and I sat in the kitchen, alone, staring at the sink. There was a plate with crumbs, a glass with a ring of water on the table, his shoes by the door, and I thought, quietly, without drama, this is my life now. It wasn't terror. It was worse than terror. It was acceptance. The next week, I asked him to leave. I said it calmly. I surprised myself with how calm I sounded. He stared at me like I'd spoken another language. Then he got angry for about 10 minutes. Not loud, just sharp. He said I was ungrateful. He said I was confused. He said I'd regret it. Then he went quiet. He packed his things without looking at me much. When the door closed, I stood in the hallway for a long time. I didn't feel free. I didn't feel proud. I felt tired. And I felt embarrassed. Not because anyone knew, because I knew. After he left, the house was too quiet at first. I slept badly. I kept expecting his voice from the other room. I kept reaching for the second coffee cup. Then I started noticing what else was gone. I called Eleanor. Her daughter answered. Eleanor had moved to be near her son. I called Margaret's number. A stranger answered. Margaret had died 2 winters back. I hadn't known. I sat at my kitchen table with the phone in my hand and felt something crack inside me. Not heartbreak for Robert. Heartbreak for time. For how easily it went. For how ordinary the losing was. I went to the diner alone one Thursday. I sat in our booth. The waitress didn't recognize me at first. That stung more than it should have. I ordered tea. It tasted like nothing. I watched other tables laugh and talk, and I realized I had become a person who could vanish. That's what I live with now. Not just the fact that I let him into my home, the fact that I let myself disappear so quietly that nobody even had a chance to notice. Some days, I catch myself doing little things the way he liked them, cutting sandwiches the way he wanted, keeping the radio off in the morning, choosing the safe route when I drive. Then I remember he isn't here, and I feel angry in a dull, tired way. Not fireworks, just heaviness. I see women around my age at the grocery store, standing in the floral section, smiling at their phones, looking a little younger for a second because someone is paying attention to them. I know that look. I wore that look. I don't speak to them. I don't have anything clean to say, nothing that would fit on a greeting card. I just feel my throat tighten, and I turn my cart toward the bread aisle and keep going. I still water my ferns. I still sit on the porch. The birds still come. The wind chime still sounds in the morning. But it doesn't sound the same to me. When the phone rings, I hesitate before I answer. When there's a knock at the door, I check who it is. If I go out to eat, I sit where I can see the room. It isn't fear exactly. It's a kind of watchfulness I didn't have before, a quiet guarding. At night, when the lights are off, I replay small moments, not the big ones, the tiny ones. The time I lied to Eleanor and said I was sick, the time I didn't go to my grandson's performance, the time I let Robert move my things and acted like it was nothing, the time I laughed at a joke I didn't find funny because it was easier than starting a conversation I didn't know how to finish. Those are the moments that stay because they look like nothing. And that's how it happens. I still set 2 cups out sometimes, not because I want him back, because I'm still teaching my hands what my life is now. The second cup still gets cold.